Now we're going to bring the beat stems into Pro Tools and we're going to get them all lined up BPM wise, make sure that they fit to the song. There were no issues when we exported from Logic, which is something you have to check every time you get stems from anybody. If you're doing this yourself, if you're exporting from Ableton or Logic or anywhere else going into Pro Tools, or even if you're exporting from Pro Tools going to Logic or somewhere else, you need to check and make sure no extra sample padding at the beginning has been added or anything on those offline bounces, because sometimes this will happen when they're going through master processing or anything that adds sample delay. So let's get into that. Let's bring in these beat stems and see where we're at. So for this kind of move, I'm just going to go to the import dialog for the audio, and remember that's Shift Command I, so I could easily just hit Shift Command I. That's going to import the audio or give me the dialogue at least. And I'm going to go to where I have the audio files, where he has the beat stems. And then you can see here the beat stems. I always hope that the producer knew what they were doing, and these line up and you can drop them in and they're all the same as the master, but typically not the case. So these are very simply labeled, which is nice. 808 bells, coin, cymbal, fill, all that stuff. We're going to hit Command A. We're going to bring these in. Now we're just adding. Remember, I'm going to show you why we're just adding these samples and stuff after I bring everything in. Okay, I'm going to show you a way to save this all as a package so that everything's contained in one package. Now let's go here, and we have all these guys here. Okay, so this should say open, but hey, that's why you need multiple ways to do one thing. This time I'm just going to go to the Finder and I'm going to drag them in. Okay, grab all these and drag them in. Bar one, beat one. I could just drag them in at first. I'll drag them to bar one, beat one. Okay, so I got them in. I'm going to pull them over to bar one, beat one. And I typically like to have my beat stems or my instrumental stuff above the vocals. Just my preference. I like to have my instruments and all that stuff. I like the drums first, especially in hip hop, R&B, rock, anything that's going to be rhythm oriented. I want to put the drums first, and then I'm going to put the instruments, and then I'm going to put the vocals at the bottom, just because that way I can find the vocals very simply. Because we have a template, the next video, what I'm going to show you is how I just basically match these tracks to the template. And if there's anything missing in the template, I'll go ahead and I'll build those tracks. Sometimes it'll be by duplicating tracks. So for example, I have all these in here, these stems, but I also have on my template, I have my all my buses already routed with, for example, an 808 track, right? With all the different plugins I like to use on an 808. And those are going through a drum mix bus to a all drums bus to the master bus, right? So I don't want to just leave these stems how they are, because right now they're going to monitor left, right. They're just going right out the stereo out. They're not going to my master augs. They're not going to hit any of my processing. They're not grouped right, all that stuff. So I use my template to be able to do that. There's multiple ways of importing samples into your template. This is just how I like to do it, because it's thorough and it's manual, right? Like I can see it happening, which I don't know what it is about that when you're mixing, but you really don't want to like miss something. You don't want to miss a stem or have something routed somewhere and you didn't realize it was routed over there. Those can be really big headaches down the road. So I'm going to take this 808, for example. I'm just going to give you an example of a few stems here and how I would match these up. And I'm going to drag this up to my 808 mix. And then that has everything and it's routing to the drum mix. So if I play this, you're going to hear it going through everything. If I wanted to, for example, come in here and go, okay, I want to turn on my drum mix bus, right? And that's all these NLSs and everything, right? So now I'm going to start turning on plugins and it's going to start sounding processed. I'm going to turn that guy on. I'm going to turn this guy on. And you can see I'm holding down Option Control Command and I'm clicking because I'm turning on all the plugins in the row so I can get this drum mix bus and the drum master bus. Some of these plugins are not, they're like demoed, so don't worry about those little things that are popping up on the screen. You know, sometimes I use a different plugin within a session to test it out, or, you know, the client asked for it or something. Just popping all these on in a row. And then now I don't need to hold down that same option. Now I'm just going to be turning these guys on, which is Control Command clicking. and I'm not trying to turn them on for all channels because there's no other inserts on those channels. And then I'm going to leave these sends off. I always want to leave my sends off because I don't know if I'm going to use them or not. So now I have my drum mix, my drum master bus, and my master augs. I could turn these guys on as well and just kind of have my master processing going. But typically I don't do this. I don't just like turn on all my master processing. What I usually do is I'll bypass all this stuff for now, and I'll set levels with my mix to get all my stuff hitting around, you know, -10 or so that I can have some headroom to play with, you know, a good 10 to 15 dB to play with as I set my levels, because once I start mixing and compressing and all that stuff's going to come into play. So here's my 808. I'm going to turn all these processors on. I'm just going to turn them on, and we're going to hit play just so you can hear how different the 808 is going to sound now.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Rolls Royce outside, so you know that's me. Yeah, chilling with.
Rolls Royce outside, so you know that's me. I'm chilling with your bitch, bumping Jodeci. They said he didn't.
So right away, you're going to notice that there's issues with the stems, and that's just always going to happen, right? You're going to see like that there's actually a big gap at the beginning, just as I suspected when I was talking about, you know, how you export the stems. The beat maker here, whoever did this, he must have printed through some limiters and stuff that had look ahead on and all that. So you can actually see that there's a good amount of pre-roll right here. And that's a big issue, right, with stems, because look, it's all off beat. You see the grid right here. None of this is on beat. And that could screw a lot of people up because they're like, oh man, you know, I put my stuff in, now I don't know what to do. But typically what it is it's just a little bit of a pre-roll, right? It's a little like pre-delay from a limiter that had a look ahead or something, okay? So all we need to do to fix that is we're just gonna go in and we're going to hit play again, first of all. Let's check this out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like boot, boot, you know, like that's all funky and messed up. So let's go to where we have that drum coming in. It sounds like it's in this filtered drums here. Yeah, so you can see this has pre-roll as well. So the best way to do this is we're going to group all of the stems. And these are just things you're always going to run into as a mixing engineer. You're never going to have things perfect unless you're working with really, really, really good people. And even then, you're going to run into problems with them as well. It's just kind of part of the game, you know? So remember, we did grab our 808 and already put it to another track. For the purpose of this edit, I'm just going to grab that 808 again, that stem, and I'm going to pull it back down, just so that we can get this this tightened up at the beginning. Okay, so the best way to do this is we're going to find what comes in first. I'm going to turn it to slip mode, and then we're going to look at this 808 and drum that's coming in here. And we're going to just find like the downbeat, right? So it looks like the 808 or the filter drums comes in first here. And this is the very first. This is why I love Pro Tools. Look at that waveform view. Absolutely gorgeous, right? So we're going to take that and remember this key command we had of hitting A and S, which chops from the left or the right. That's what we're going to use for this. But the first thing we have to do is we have to select up and down these tracks. So how do you do that? You want to hold down Shift and you want to go P for up, right? And that's selecting, as you can see, up. It's going up the clips. And then you want to hit semicolon and Shift and go down. And now we're going to have this line. Oh, see, we didn't want to go over that vocal. So just go back over here. And let's try that again. We're going to go just from the drums here. All right, so we're going to grab the filter drums again. And we're not going to, this is if you don't want to do a group, right? We could just go up this and hit A. That's going to trim everything to the left there, right? And then we're going to go down and we're going to make sure we don't get our vocal in this one, right? So just pay attention when you start seeing that waveform come around. And I'm just holding down Shift and hitting semicolon, and that's going down. So semicolon, and then the next one is reverse vowels, and then we got the vocal, so don't hit that, and then A, and then bam, right? So now we have trimmed all that fat at the beginning. So now the next step we want to do is we want to grab all of these guys, and remember our key commands here, or our way of doing this, is to have edit, link, track, and edit selection selected, and then we can go down to the last drum sample, or beat sample, and Shift click. Okay, now we've grabbed all that stuff from the region start, and we're just gonna grab that and pull it over. Okay, now that should fix it. It looks like it's starting to line up with the beats and the downbeats of stuff, like you can see right here, right? But even then, it looks like it's still kind of overlapping a little bit. So we still might have some trimming to do at the beginning. But I just wanted to show you that part of this because this happens a lot when you get beat stems from people. And another thing I always do in the session is the last thing I'm going to import is going to be the actual beat master that he did, okay? So let's do that real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to save this all as one package so you have everything saved together. And we can also use that master bounce that he did as a reference for where these samples go, how far off it is for the beginning, etc., and what we got going on. So let's go back to our audio files, and we're going to go to his MP3 here, which is the mastered version. And then we're going to drag it to the beginning. And you could see right there, he's got some pre-roll on his as well. So that's something to really pay attention to because we want it up here as sort of a reference, right? And we could play this and we could see how that sounds.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Rolls Royce outside, so you know that's me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one thing I'm noticing is the 808 and the drum loop are playing together perfectly, like they're tight, right? So let's hear this without that beginning, that chopped out thing that we did.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Rolls Royce outside, so you know that's me.
So you could tell right away that the vocals also need some trimming at the beginning. So you can do one of two things. You can move the beat over so that it locks in with the vocals, but that would be kind of silly because, you know, then your whole song could be off the grid, right? So usually what ends up happening is because of the export from Logic Pro, from FL Studio, whatever, it gave that little sample at that beginning, right? So a really easy way to deal with this is just to listen to the beat with a click and figure out, okay, the vocals come in on the downbeat of 1, 2, 3, you know, listen to the master, like just find that reference point in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's going 1, 2, and, so that's where he's doing the yeah, right? So 1, 2, yeah, 2, yeah. So all we have to do is go to our timing and we can just go quarter notes, right? And we could go clicking 1, 2, and, right? So,
yeah.
Right? So if we look at the actual grid, his yeah should be right here on this grid. And that's really important. Just start to line things up. And we'll get to the next module where I'm going to start to show you how I route things through the template. And we'll start to get levels on the master so we can get some headroom and we can start this mix, because really before the mix we got a lot of editing, tuning, you know, vocal manipulation stuff to do before we even get into using any EQs, compressors, anything like that. And this series is really to show you guys the full process of making a professional record, and a lot of it is not very, you know, enticing. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna use this special plugin. I want to show you the whole process, going through Melodyne, going through vocal align, tuning, doubling stacks, showing you how to tighten those up, auto align those, sample accurate auto align them, and all that good stuff that's going to make this a great record. Getting rid of all this noise. I mean, look at just like the vocal stems. Look at all the noise in this. You know, it's insane. It's just a ton of noise. So things like this, where we clear this up and clean it, this is what's going to make this record big. It's going to make it punchy, pop, you know, and we can add our own color, our own textures, and our own vintage vibes, and it won't mess it up because there's nothing dirty in there. We're going to dirty it up how we want to dirty it up, you know? All right, let's get to it.